Holy cow, everyone. Thank you very, very much for your patience. I'm sorry we are starting a bit late. I am a great, great intellectual property lawyer, and my team here is fantastic at writing plans of action and getting suspended sellers back online, even when it has nothing to do with the law. It's about half of our practice, but I am not great with the technology. Scott is much better than I with that. And he was able to save this webinar. So Scott, thank you very much. Scott is the founder of Catching Clouds. They specialize in accounting for sellers, and we're going to be teaching you Amazon seller accounting, the best practices. Scott, if you wouldn't mind, just start by introducing yourself and a little bit about your history and how you came into our space.
No, sounds great. Thank you very much, CJ, and thank you for having me on this webinar. Catching Clouds was actually a combination of my skills. I'm a 30-plus year IT geek, and my co-founder and wife, Patty, who's a CPA, and we wondered what do businesses do when they don't understand technology and accounting. And so we've really brought those two together, and then we decided to focus on a specific niche. E-commerce, which I've totally geeked out on. I've become an expert in. I love the sellers. I love the complexity, all the crazy things that Amazon does, and our ability for our accounting team to unravel those and give sellers accurate financials so they can make great decisions, because you have to make real-time decisions being an Amazon seller.
I got to tell you, it's great that you love it. I love being in this business also. We came into this because a client of mine years ago, almost a decade ago, started to negotiate to buy an Amazon-based business, closed several years later, got suspended, and called me up and said, there's no lawyers. There are no lawyers to help people write their plans of action. You got to look into this. And when I started getting to know the people, I love dealing with the entrepreneurs. I mean, I think I love work. I wouldn't say every day, okay, because you guys are very, very stressed when you call us. But most days I love it. So it's great to have someone who has the energy and knowledge and really focuses on our people and a specific area. If you're ready to get right into the topic, I'll start the slides, and you can start teaching ourselves what they need to know about best practices for their accounting needs.
That sounds great.
If I have another technical difficulty, you may see me leave the screen because I'll be jumping out of my window.
I'm on the first floor. I don't have that option.
We did it. Okay, your agenda.
All right. Sounds good. So, I'm going to start with the basic of knowing your numbers. I mean, the whole point of all of this, if you're running a business and whatever your big why is, you want to know your numbers. I mean, whether or not you're talking to a business partner, a spouse, you want to sleep well, you want to know those. You want to know the different accounting solutions and the different tools that you can use that actually work for Amazon businesses. And there are a very narrow set of those. I'm going to have 2 slides on sales tax. I've talked about sales tax a ton this year. I'm just going to cover the basics and move on. And then I'm going to cover some best practices and some basics that you need to know. So let's just get into it.
Well, I tell you, when we get to the sales tax issues, I'm going to ask you some questions, because while I think it's kind of a minute issue for sellers, it comprises like 90% of the conversation sometimes about the amnesty, not the amnesty. Do they owe it? Is this Nexus stuff accurate? So I'm going to ask some questions about that, because I know that's what sellers want to know.
I'm happy to answer some questions. I've just talked about it a lot. So the first part is knowing your numbers. Whether you're a serial entrepreneur and this is your 10th business, or you're trying to quit your current job and you've realized that, hey, the future is e-commerce, you need to know some basic pieces. The first is your gross profit. And that's just basically, I'm not going to go into too much, keep in mind I'm not an accountant, but the idea is it's just your sales minus your cost of goods sold. And that's all the Amazon fees and the cost of your products and some merchant fees. You want to know that top line number. Are you profitable? And how big is that margin? Okay. The next one is your net profit. What is your profit after you've paid payroll and you've paid for CJ to help you out with the suspension, and you've paid the rent and power and internet and whatever other tools you're using? How much money is left over? And I'll talk about it more, but keep in mind there's a big difference between what it shows on your P&L and then cash in the bank. The next is COGS, or cost of goods sold. Okay, those are all the costs relating to selling the product. That's buying the product. That's inbound shipping. That's all the 15 to 22% of Amazon fees if you're using both Amazon as well as FBA. You want to know what's going on with your inventory. How much do you have in inventory? That's cash. It's just in another form. You want to know how much do you have locally, how much at a 3PL, how much is at Amazon FBA that can turn over. You want to know your inventory turnover or velocity of sales so that you know if you buy a widget and you make $50 on every widget sale, how fast can you turn over $10,000 or $100,000? You want to know your profitability per SKU and per order. Are you making a profit per order? Are you curious if you're making more money per order than Amazon is? In a lot of cases, they're making more. And you want to know that. So you might have a mid-margin product that's selling really fast and more profitable to your business and brings more cash to your business than a high-margin product. And then you need to be able to kill off those lower ones. And you want to know what your margins are. So if you're magically teleported onto Shark Tank or you're on The Profit or whatever else, you want to know those numbers. And if you are working with your spouse or your spouse is supporting you with this crazy effort to sell on Amazon, you want to know those numbers so that you can answer those questions. But mostly, you want them to make great decisions. Let's move on to the next slide.
Well, let me just take something also.
Sure.
These numbers are also vital because a lot of sellers get approached by Amazon and they offer them money. Borrow $100,000, $200,000, $300,000. And unfortunately, we've seen sometimes where those loans result in people growing in the wrong area of their business and actually growing themselves right out of business.
Oh, yeah.
Where they're dumping the money into things with either low or no profit margins, not really knowing the numbers. So you really do have to know your numbers. And I think unlike retail prior to Amazon, you really have easy access to incredible amounts of data. I mean, for all the problems that Amazon causes, all the grief, some of the tools and the opportunities are just fantastic, like never before available to like your basic entrepreneur where you have all this data available to you. And also working with your spouse, I've done it. That can be challenging just by itself.
It can.
Hats off for that.
All right. So I want to talk about accounting versus analytics. And CJ set this up great. So there are great tools both on Amazon Seller Central that they've really been investing in and adding new features and functionality to allow you to run your business. But there's some great tools, Tecometrics, Feedvisor, Hello Profit, Inventory Lab, Managed by Stats, Fetcher, and others that are great real-time tools. These are tools you set up, you connect them to your Amazon account. You typically only have to upload your costs for those items or the current costs, and they'll give you great reports. You want to use that information to make those real-time daily decisions on what you should be buying. What's selling fast? What are you going to run out of stock and potentially lose the buy box? Okay. But I want to make it clear there's a big difference between those real-time numbers, even if they say they're accounting information, and it can be close. But invariably, for the last 6 years, when we look at those tools, which I think are phenomenal tools, we have relationships with them. Most of our clients use them. When we get to it and we run the accounting and we go check and reconcile every bank account, every credit card, and all the money that came through from Amazon and all the money that's being spent, there's usually between a 3 and 20%, depending, gap between what you see in those things. And you might think you're making a lot more money or making less. And that once you've reconciled accounting, which is a daily, weekly, and monthly task, not a real-time task, you end up with a different number. And it doesn't mean that there's anything wrong with those other tools. But when you reconcile your bank account and you think you have $200,000 and the bank thinks you have 50, the bank wins. Okay. So, or you need to find out why and fix those things. So I just want to make sure that there's real-time decisions you're making. And then there's a separate step where it's actually a methodical double entry reconciled data accounting process you want to go through. You can use both to make great decisions and really manage your business well.
When you're working with a particular seller and you see that range is somewhere between 3 and 20%, is it consistent where the seller can look at it in real time and say, I know I have a margin of error usually of around 7, 8% or 13, 14%, or is it just, across the board?
No, actually, it's usually pretty consistent and what we do is we can work at narrowing that gap by providing more accurate cost information and more timely cost information by having a cloud inventory tool and have really accurate costs. We'll bring those closer together. There's always things that those other tools don't look at expenses and payroll and other costs. But in general, no, it gets to be a number where you can say, okay, it's always off by 5%. And they can look at it and move forward. But until you have accurate accounting numbers, you don't know what that gap is.
Are you also able to help sellers find where their 80-20 rule applies? So they can identify which products they should go deeper in?
We do a little bit of that. We're really focused on the accounting and the financial geek stuff and, accounts payable, accounts receivable, where all the inventory is and accurate COGS. When you're looking at that, that's really what these tools are for, or a solid cloud inventory tool. And I've got some slides where I talk about them, where you're looking at your profitability per SKU and profitability of order. That's not something in the accounting. Now, it's something we don't do, but if you have a virtual CFO, and we have a range of those partners, they'll really dig into that data. But most of these tools will show you. You can really sort on the profitability, the number of items that are sold, and really see that information.
Yeah, high margins, low cost, low fees. Mm-hmm. That's the name of the game.
Yep. So like I've said, there's a big difference between cash in the bank and income. When you're looking at your business can be very profitable, but not be generating a fair amount of cash, or vice versa, or be unprofitable and not generating cash. But if you don't have those numbers, you don't know. You really want to have the ability to project out your cash flow, not just 2, 4, 6 weeks, but out multiple months, to understand how much you're investing. Just like a lot of people look at Amazon as the new higher speed 21st century stock market that you can put in $100,000 and 6 months later get 400,000 out the other end if you do everything right. Not necessarily everybody has those numbers, but you really want to be able to project those things and understand where your costs are going to change. The nice thing with an e-commerce Amazon business is most of your costs go into, of course, to Amazon fees as you're selling stuff, but really into buying inventory. You can run very lean. You can have a very small dynamic team. You can have virtual assistants, but you still need to look forward for those things. And then you might find a product that's selling great. You got to be careful you don't run out, and that you can continue to do that. So you want to monitor your production, access to your raw materials, and really be monitoring what's going on. So you're looking ahead. So it's so much real time. You need to take a step back at least monthly and look at the current books, what happened the last month, and then look forward a bit, and then act, and then readjust. You want to look out for debt. Now, that doesn't change the fact that most e-commerce clients that we've dealt with have 10 to 15 credit cards. They are charging them, paying them off daily to buy inventory and product, and it's just capital. It's not long-term debt. But like CJ said, the Amazon might come to you if you're selling well and offer you a bunch of money, and it might be great. It's easier than going to a bank and trying to get money and explain what kind of business you are. But you want to make sure you really understand what the impact to the business is and how much that additional margin, because Amazon asked for the first 15% for the marketplace, 5 to 7% for FBA. Now they're asking for 2, 3, 4, 5% for a loan. Now they're asking you to pay X amount in Amazon sponsored product ads. All of a sudden, there's no margin left. Okay.
Yeah, you need
so you have to keep an eye on each of those things.
Yeah, and sellers need to know these numbers. I mean, the person who introduced me to the world of Amazon, we went to college together, and Dr. Meaner's Economics 101 is cash is king.
Yeah.
Cash is king. So you really have to watch the percentage of what is your real cost to you. We had someone on about a week or so ago. It was Payoneer who would fund you on a daily basis. The money might be cheaper and you have your cash faster. If you're financing your inventory on credit cards, there are many sellers out there who are trying to make money on the points or the points back with really, really thin margins. I'm not a huge fan of that. It's really, really risky.
I completely agree.
When it comes to the Amazon loans, we've seen the interest rates like across the board, like some really, really great interest rates and some interest rates that are absolutely awful. But on the flip side of that, if you take an Amazon loan and you are shortly after suspended, you can't be both a fantastic seller worthy of a $300,000 loan and also so bad that they should kick you off. And we've used that argument in non-legal suspensions to help get sellers back on. Also, there's a great speaker, Eddie Levine from Wholesale Breakthrough, and his focus is on a narrow product line, but going really deep into the products, like really going deep and having a ton of inventory so your costs are lower. There are also plenty of sellers who like to go broad and not be married to any particular products.
Yeah, no, I agree.
A lot of different ways of skinning this cat.
Yeah. So, but you are a business, okay? Whether it's a hobby or it's your 12th business, you're really a business. And accounting, unfortunately, is really the same, but it's just as important to every business. We support, there's so many businesses that are profitable that go under. If you look at the number of small businesses and the percentages that make it to 3 years, let alone 5 years, are pretty daunting. But the big things that can impact that is your ability to understand what's going on in the business, having both accurate financials and accurate advisors, whether it's legal advisors, financial or tax advisors, to make sure there's somebody that's helping you, guiding, you're getting those resources. I've run into many e-commerce sellers that they feel really lonely because they're running it from their house. There's nowhere to go meet. And actually, there are a ton of webinars like this. There are online forums like e-commerce Fuel, and there are actually quite a few places that are there, and a number of people like CJ and I that really care about, wow, this is a real problem in the modern 21st century. Let's help them solve these problems, whether it's on their own and we'll share information, or provide full services. If you're like, I don't know what's going on, I love this, I want to stay in business, I'm willing to pay to have someone fix whatever the problem is.
Also Amazon sellers, there are many courses, and I usually announce which ones I'm speaking at the end of the webinar. But not only do you always go and learn something, the camaraderie, finding people who do the same thing. I'm sorry, I'm stepping on my own words as an attorney. That's not great. But you also get a lot of inspiration. So you go to these events, you'll always learn at the events. You'll always learn something that will help you do your business, but you also get inspired. Working either from your own small business or from home is daunting sometimes. There's no one to interact with. There's no water cooler. So the events that we're going to talk about at the very end, you also go there and you meet people who are just like you. It's very, very inspirational to also go to these events. You learn, you get inspired. It gives you energy to get back in the trenches. Of course, you're not thinking about that right now. You're getting through the end of Q4.
Yeah.
But some of the events you will always learn, and it gets you re-energized to really get back in the game, or to pivot, or to grow, or go into a new market.
I agree. And we have to. It's like constantly evolving. So here are the accounting goals. Why are you doing accounting? And it's not the bottom where it's just to file tax returns. Accounting is to make great decisions. Okay. You need to know, are we losing money? Are we making money? Have I signed up for 12 random tools and I'm paying for 10 of them and I'm not using them anymore and I'm bleeding cash? So that's the whole point. If you want to know why, it's so that you have information and you need to learn it. I'll have a few books that I drop, but there's a great book called Financial Intelligence for Entrepreneurs. And it's a really good book if you don't understand financials. And if you're running a business now, you should go read a book like that and understand it, or talk to someone that's going to explain it to you. You want to manage your cash flow, which we've talked about. You want to use it to secure funding and not necessarily Amazon funding. You want to have those accurate financials. They're going to expect accurate profit and loss statement and a balance sheet. You want to make sure that you review your financials monthly. We close all the books for all of our clients by the 15th of the month, and we review them the last 2 weeks of the month. So we're looking back just a month, okay, not a year. And what happened, what went well? Wow, we spent a bunch on lightning deals. Did that actually translate into profit later? It's asking those questions. You want to be able to ask those questions you have about the business. You need to share it with your partners, investors, and as I've said, spouses and whoever else, supporting people that are helping you. You want to use it for quarterly tax planning. You're trying to do this to make money and make profit. So you need to stop quarterly, talk to your CPA, go, looks like I made money. I should be paying in taxes. Do that. And then you want to be prepared so that as soon after this crazy holiday season in e-commerce world, how you did, and that you can file your taxes, you've paid whatever taxes because you were profitable, and then you can move on versus stretching that out until the fall, not knowing if you really made money or not. It's a tough way to run a business.
Also, I would stress to sellers, having been, while I'm an attorney, I'm also an entrepreneur. Mm-hmm. When you make money, pay your taxes. And also the goal is also, in my opinion, to save. So you want to pull some portion out and put it away, put it on the side so that, your net worth grows each year. The goal is not to stay, in my opinion, the goal is not to stay forever on the treadmill and constantly grow. The goal is to better yourself and better your life and have a savings. So pay the tax man, put some portion aside, and then reinvest. I'm not a believer of reinvesting 100% of what comes in. You want to end up, if the internet should crash, okay, if all of a sudden Amazon goes the way of Ma Bell for our older listeners and they're broken up and there's a problem, you want to have money in the bank, okay? Even if you're buying Bitcoin, take some of the money, put it in a real currency, put it aside. So like your efforts have resulted in something you can touch and feel and then also live on if you do have a problem.
No, I agree. There's a book called Profit First, which has a great overview approach on how to do that, in which you pull the profits out, set it aside, don't touch it for a short while, and then run your business on whatever's left, versus you get to the end of the year going, did I make any money? So no, those are great points.
And there's a guy, I'm not sure if it was the guy who ran GE, but it was a writer who wrote a book, and the quote was like, no one ever went out of business making a profit.
Yeah, it's tough. You can be done though if you're not paying attention to what's going on, especially at the pace of business these days. So this slide, the accounting options, there are valid, affordable cloud accounting options. Your business is an e-commerce online seller. You're in the cloud. The tools are in the cloud. But I have Excel on there because I've run into 5, almost $10 million sellers still running their business with a crazy amount of stress on spreadsheets. I am not recommending that. If you're over 50 million and have a crazy complex business or in multiple countries, you can consider a NetSuite or an Oracle Financials. But Xero and QuickBooks will cost you between 30 and maybe $80 per month if you're doing multi-currency. They really have gone head to head the last few years. About 4 years ago, QuickBooks was way behind. As of today, they're really equal from a feature, functionality, and everything else.
You guys use Xero, right?
Now we've used Xero because we've been using Xero for the last 6 years. We prefer Xero. We think it's a better tool. We think it's been great. Actually, most of it's been great the last 6 years, and they've really refined it. The next slide, when I talk about A2X accounting, or next couple slides, there's been a great integration for Amazon sellers that's been there for the last 4 years. That's only been out for about 9 months for QBO. So it was available for Xero, but not QuickBooks Online. And it makes posting QuickBooks income and cost of goods sold really easy. So those are the two key choices. There are a ton of others, but they just don't integrate. So the slide shows, depending if you're a multi-channel seller and you're selling on Shopify or eBay or Jet or Walmart, you do, and my recommendations, big IT geek, do all this consulting and e-commerce business process optimization. But what you want to have in your accounting are summary financial numbers of what's going on financially. You do not want to turn Xero or QuickBooks Online into an inventory tool. That's not what it does. There's these great standalone tools like Deer, Send7, Skubana, ShipHero, and others that will connect to all of your channels, handle purchase orders, manage the inventory, track where it is, help you transfer inventory, and then see all those statistics and analytics you want to see about profitability per SKU, profitability per order. It'll allow you to manage these various channels and all these different things. And then you want to pull the data. And if you see there's a little gap on my little slide there, I don't necessarily connect these tools. Everybody's like, let's connect everything to the accounting. Let's connect every tool and every app together. Invariably, these tools are not accounting tools, and they push the wrong data, invalid data, and a range of other things in there. But there is a phenomenal tool called A2X Accounting, which I have in there, which connects to Amazon. It'll post an invoice every 2 weeks. Whenever you have a settlement statement, it'll match it to the penny, and it has for us for the last 4 years, and it'll split the income over the month. It is phenomenal. It's easy. You just go, okay, and it does its thing once it's set up. So there really is a tool for Amazon, but for some of the other channels, there's more work. And then
I agree so much with what you're saying. Like, our skills here are plans of actions and IP issues, okay? Mm-hmm. A seller's main skill set is either identifying products or designing products and selling products. So unless you are an expert in all things, a jack of all trades, you shouldn't really be doing a lot of these things as a seller. Focus on where your profit is, what your special skills are, and then farm out things that you need other people to do. I mean, have someone else take care of the accounting needs, and use these other tools to do that. And so you can spend your time, there's only so many hours in a day, identifying products, selling products, making your listings as strong as possible, sourcing your products, and then give the stuff that you're not an expert in, to someone who can do it better.
No, I agree.
That's business.
To provide the structure to make everything happen. So you want the tools that automate things and provide structure. So if you would train a friend, family, employee, virtual assistant to do work in your business, they're working against a tool versus a nebulous process. It's people, process, and technology. So I've mentioned A2X Accounting. They're really phenomenal. A great tool out of New Zealand. They've been doing this for years. They provide a ton of value. We work with them all the time, and they've been our most reliable. It is tool for posting all the income from Amazon, all the fees and breaking them all out in as much detail as you want to see. If you don't know how to set up these tools, we both have a blog on our site, and I'll talk more about our Catching Clouds Academy, but we have an online training video that shows you exactly how to do the accounting. So if you're like, I can't afford to outsource it, I'm going to have to do it myself, that's there. And I'm covering that later. So we can just hop by this, but A2X is phenomenal. Check them out. It is, in my opinion, the only way. It's the only tool. It's fairly unique that really provides this level of detail for whether you're on Xero or QuickBooks Online.
All right. I want to take this opportunity to tell all the listeners that listen to our webinars here, unlike some of the other people out there, unlike some of the other consultants who don't have teams and farm out your plans of action and make deals, we don't receive anything from any company for either having them on the website, the web show, or we refer people. If you go to A2X, it's solely for your benefit. There's nothing coming back. And a lot of the people,
I do get t-shirts. So, and a great relationship, and they bring me really great New Zealand honey and New Zealand chocolate, but they provide great value to both our accountants and our clients. And that's why we partner and build relationships.
So, and you got sellers, you have to focus on where you're getting your information from. If there's an affiliate account or something else, you may want to take it with a grain of salt. And I think that Scott and myself, the information is for you. Okay. So take a look at A2X. It sounds great. We have an account that does those kind of numbers and stuff for us. But this is something specifically for sellers. And it's something that Scott is sharing with you because he knows they're good. Right. Here we go. This, even though it's this much of the issues facing sellers, it's like that much of the conversation.
I know it is. So I love this slide. But do you have Nexus in Texas? Let's switch over to the next slide. So here's the thing. You've got sales tax management tools. Sales tax is crazy complex. Okay. You're dealing with multiple states. Every state's a little bit different. You've got all the data out of Amazon. There's just a ton of information to deal with. We use a tool. Everybody should use a tool, even if you're in one state. Okay. You might go, oh, it's so easy, but there's so much complexity. Things change so fast. So my main advice is leverage one of these tools. I would put both Avalara, Taxify and TaxJar at the top for ease of use. TaxJar is great for any below $1 million sellers, depending on what you want to do. But you want it to collect all the data, and then they'll automatically post and file the returns and transfer the money, pull it out of your account and get it to the state for you. Now, Amazon FBA sellers, and we can get into this debate, and I've had a debate, and there's a lovely debate on our website, have sales tax nexus in 23 states. And this is what the states think, because when you ship 1,000 units widgets to Amazon, they move it dynamically, whether it's in that state for 5 seconds or 5 weeks. It creates nexus, which is a legal term for which I shouldn't talk about legal stuff, but this really does. And I would love to prove it. Over the last 6 years, I've been geeking out on this. I spent a ton of time dealing with these issues and looking at all the nuances, but it really is a risk. And every Amazon seller that's using FBA needs to take a risk management approach, look at things, and decide which states you're going to register and collect in, and move forward. So what questions do you have, CJ?
Well, this is what sellers have asked me. Now, listen, I'm not a tax lawyer. I'm not a CPA. I'm not a tax lawyer. Okay. We do plans of actions and intellectual property.
Yep.
But sellers ask me, well, should I take advantage of the amnesty programs that exist? And the answer is, I don't know. At least that's what I tell them, because if you go forward, you're saying, I owe you a ton of money. And then you're going to have to keep paying that money going forward. If you don't take advantage of it, you might owe the money with penalties and interest and all sorts of other ugly stuff.
Yeah.
But you know what? Has not really hit the fan yet. So for sellers, risk versus reward. And listen to Scott, talk to your CPA. I mean, talk to your accountant who handles this issue for you. There is, in my opinion, right now, no right or wrong. Because do you want to create an immediate liability, or do you want to ride it out and see what happens? What are your thoughts?
So yeah, right. Even now, even with all the additional visibility and the changes that are going on and the amnesty program, which is over. So, and it was super rare, and there probably won't be one. I wouldn't assume there's going to be another one. Don't wait for another one. And that Every seller has to make the decision, but more and more states are sending things out. I have clients that are being audited by California now, and because of the audit and everything else that's going on, multiple states are sending out notifications to everybody. Keep in mind the same tools you're using, Jungle Scout and a bunch of others that you use to check on your competition, the sales tax auditors in these states can use to scan through and find sellers and see how much they're selling and where they are and what products and if they're selling into their state or not. So the chances of being caught are still very low. The fact that Amazon added 1 million sellers last year, there are a total of 4 million Amazon, 3P sellers, means you're one, a very small number. And you might decide, hey, below this level, before I owe $1,000 per state in sales tax, because I wouldn't mind writing $1,000 or $2,000 check. I just don't want to write a $30,000 check. So you need to be monitoring it. You can use these tools just to watch how much sales tax you should have been collecting so that you can decide, oh, I'm over $5,000 in California. I don't want to write a check for that much plus interest and penalty, roughly 50% more. I'm going to start register and collect. And if they ever catch me, maybe I'll set some extra cash aside just in case. So everybody has to decide, but this is how it's being enforced. Businesses are being caught and audited. It is a reality, and everything really is changing. So,
if sellers wanted to sort of calculate in a certain number of percentage to sort of add to their cost of goods or to stash a certain amount of money aside, any percentage that you think they should put aside?
Well, if you didn't collect it, it's 6 to 8%,
which a lot of sellers at a loss
in sales. So 6,000 to 8,000 for every 100K in sales. So if you aren't collecting sales tax, that's what your total potential liability is.
Do you see anything? And this question there's no prep on this question. I apologize. I'm really not sorry for asking this surprise question. I was trying to show I'm sorry, but I'm really not.
Yeah.
I am not calling this tax reduction act that the president either signed or is going to sign today, because I'm on the East Coast in New York paying a tremendous amount of real estate taxes. So I think I'm going to get screwed and I'm going to get killed by what's gone on the last couple of days. But is there anything about the change in the taxes that you think is really going to hit sellers hard?
Not that I've had a chance to dig into.
Wait a minute. Are you like the all our elected officials and you haven't read the whole thing yet?
Oh, God. Well, okay, I'm married to an accountant who's been reading through everything and telling me, oh, it's going to do this. It'll help us here. It'll hurt us there. The part that's interest is the state taxes. It's also SALT taxes. So the part that I haven't been able to identify is if it'll impact anybody from a sales tax perspective. Now, from a legislative perspective, or what's changing is Amazon is going to start collecting all the sales tax in the state of Washington. Okay. So Washington passed a law that said, hey, Amazon, you're a marketplace. You have to collect all the sales tax for all the sales going through, including for FBA sellers, FBM sellers, and whoever else. So if you're looking at Washington state, what's going to happen is Amazon's no longer going to take any Washington state sales tax and put it in your settlement statement. Unfortunately, even if you're an Amazon only seller, now we have clients that are selling on, 5 to 10 to 20 channels. So they still owe sales tax on all those other channels. But the way Washington has done it, you still have to file a sales tax return, even if you don't collect the money. It just means less money's in your account for you to give it back to the state. And they have a business and a B&O tax that they're going to start having every seller if you pass the threshold of, I think, over $10,000 per state. But they're the first state. My expectation is this type of change is going to flow through all the states. So the states there are at least 5 states right now that have those laws in place that'll go to Amazon and try to get Amazon to collect all the sales tax from 100% of Amazon sales. The part you have to keep an eye on, both on TaxJar's blog that's phenomenal, or the things that we put out, or anything I share through CJ, is you still might actually have to complete the paperwork. Even if you don't have any money to send them, you still might have to complete the paperwork. And unfortunately, the states have caught on, and they're trying to not only go after sales tax, but also income tax. And so you just have to keep an eye on it. And all the states are looking at ways to go after remote sellers. And so I don't know how much the current stuff that just passed last night is going to impact anybody from a sales tax business piece other than the bottom line taxes. But there are changes coming from, and it's all going to evolve, but it's going to take years to shake out. And you just have to decide what your risk tolerance is.
Like I tell you, I think I agree with you 100%. Starting in Washington, it's going to work its way through. I think that's the future because just like, Dillinger robbed banks because that's where the money is, that's where the state governments have to go. The individual sellers would be a morass of them to have to weed through to try and collect. But if they go straight to Amazon, one, I think it's the right thing to do. Amazon has the resources, the ability to do it. They're the ones collecting the vast majority of the money. And they have the ability to absorb that cost as part of their doing business. And maybe it puts Bezos just slightly below Warren Buffett again, and then he climbs above him again. But that's where I think the responsibility should and will lie. So I think that is the wave of the future. But I didn't realize that the sellers would have to do the paperwork, though. But it's better than having to collect and turn it over.
Yeah. No, I mean, yeah, because then there's less chance of any criminal, but you can still be fined $50 for not filing a form that you didn't know about per form per month. And so there's still a regulatory burden. It does take away some of the criminal and the historical stuff and everything else. But at the same time, in this deal, Amazon's getting access, or Washington State's getting access to all the money that everybody that lives in Washington State and all the money they've bought. They're going to go after the use tax. And they'll probably still go after historical sales tax for somebody and audit sellers back in time too. So I'm going to keep an eye on and make sure that Washington's not double dipping. They don't take that data and then collect use tax from everybody in Washington State and go get money from sellers and put them out of business. And so that's my concern, that they're just going to do it all and go after and get as much money as they can. All right. So there are a few business year in tax.
Is it okay? It's okay to let you go into sales tax issue now?
No, I'm good. No, you were the one that kept going. I'll stop. So look, it's the 20th. There are a bunch of stuff that you need to do and make some decisions. So let's just flip through. These are the things that you need to be doing. And we've got a great blog on the Prosper site that we wrote that has more detail about all of this. But you should be talking to your tax advisor this week or the last few days and catch them before they take off for the holidays, because you need to make your decisions. You have to make any payments. You have to purchase a new forklift or shelving or whatever else so that it's in this fiscal year to reduce your taxes. Okay. So you need to make those decisions this year. If you're a partnership or an S Corp, there are a bunch of rules that you have to pay you and your partners an amount. You have to pay any payroll taxes. There's a bunch of other financial discussions that you want to have, because you can't have the conversation the first week of January. It's too late. Okay. Because you can't impact what that is. So you want to have those conversations this week. The next one is you want to be ready to wrap everything up for the end of the year. This will help us. It'll help you. It'll help any other CPA that you're working with, is do a physical count of your inventory. Now you're like, wait, but all of my inventory is out at Amazon FBA. You want to download the Amazon FBA inventory reports. You want to look at the sellable inventory as well as unsellable inventory. You want to make sure that you know exactly. You want to make sure you have every invoice, bill, and purchase order, and know if you've spent $100,000 on product that you've only received $20K in 2017 and $80K. It can make a huge swing on your financials if you don't know the status of every purchase order and whether you've received all those goods and then where they are. You want to make sure you have a copy of every invoice of every product and you validate it and you do internal controls. And then you want to review your profit and loss statement. You want to update your books. So whether that's you or your accountants or a virtual assistant or someone like me or whatever, you want to have somebody get all of your books updated so that you know what happened in this year and you're ready to move forward. And then talk to your CPA to file your taxes.
Hey, Scott, let me interrupt you a second. And Mr. Lanzio, I saw your comment. I want to thank you. It turns out the slides are a bit difficult to read, and I had to take down one of the banners. If you email me, at the end, I usually say, if you email me a question and your physical address, I'll send you a free copy of our Amazon suspension book, how to avoid suspensions and how to get back on. But I received a note that the slides are hard to read. So if you email me, we will provide the slides to you so you can look at them afterwards. I'm trying to adjust the screen while we're going forward. But again, if you need the slides, email me and we'll send them out to you.
Cool. Make sure that you know that you as a business are responsible for collecting a W-9 for every contractor, and that includes your landlord, okay, and your accountants, sometimes your lawyers. You need to have a W-9, and then you need to issue a 1099 in January, okay, you are responsible if you've paid someone over $600, and that's about all the detail I'll go into. But I will tell you, if you paid everybody via PayPal, you're covered. PayPal will send those for you. But you have to be doing those things. And if you paid any employees in your, but if you're using a tool like Gusto for W-2s, Gusto will take care of all that for you, but you want to double check the numbers. You want to make sure that all of those things are done right. And unfortunately, you do need to download your 1099K. If you don't know what that is, on January 31st, Amazon will make a 1099K available for you. And unfortunately, Amazon will send a copy to the IRS. So they'll know about the $3 million in sales and income you did on Amazon. And you need to include that in your taxes. Okay. So just be aware that it's how we all tattle on each other, that we paid each other money, and that the IRS knows about all of it. And so you can't just leave half of your income off of your thing. And your PayPal sends them in. eBay, well, not PayPal. eBay will go through PayPal, but Walmart will send a 1099K. So you need to collect all those. But most importantly, you need to do what you're legally obligated as a business, which is filing 1099s. There are great tools like Track 1099 and others that you can enter all the information in. It'll email them out and collect them. But you want to make sure you're taking care of these details at the end of the year and into January of next year.
Also, it's not an offensive thing to ask someone. If someone is doing optimization for you or reconciliation or building a website, and before you start cutting the checks, if you get their name, address, and their social for the forms you're going to need later, that's a really great time to do it, is make it sort of part of your business practice, that when you're using a vendor for any reason that's not an employee, they get that information right off the bat. When you reach out and all of a sudden you're in a rush because it's the end of the year, the beginning of the year, it's a little bit more stressful, and sometimes people won't take your calls because they don't want to receive the 1099. Make it part of your business.
Yeah, no, it's total normal process. Let's move on to the last few slides and we can wrap this all up. So
hold on, we got it back over there.
All right.
All right.
Okay. So who's going to do the accounting? So it's crazy. So we're interviewing and hiring. We had like 300 people apply to be accountants at our company. Okay, now they get to work from home, which is cool. Everybody gets to do stuff in their PJs, and that's super appealing to everybody. But we interview all these people, and they love doing accounting. They love the puzzles. They love the numbers. They're so happy that we give them accounting to do every day. That's not me. Okay, and that's not most people. And most people didn't go into business to pay bills, pay taxes. They have their big why. They're either trying to send their kids to college or contribute to the community or just be able to travel or whatever else. So who's going to do it? Unfortunately, as a small business owner, you need to do it a little while so you understand what's involved. Okay, even if you hate it, even if you're bad at numbers, unfortunately, I expect every entrepreneur, you need to do every job. You need to pack boxes, you need to list products. You can't just delegate it all. You need to have done it, whether it's a day or an hour or a month or whatever, until you can afford to move it on. And hopefully the framework and the tools I'm giving you, you don't have to do the research on what to do and where to start, but somebody's got to do it. Okay, so let's switch to the next slide. And so one, use the right tools and automate. Okay, if somebody says I can just do it on paper, they're wrong. Okay, this is hard. There's a crazy amount of data going around. You want to automate it as much of it as yourself. Okay, you can do it yourself, which I think is good. You can have a spouse or a partner do it. In my case, I married a very smart accountant, 22 years ago, and I haven't had to bounce a checkbook or file a tax return or any of that stuff. But do that for a short while. It's not in my opinion, the best and most valuable use of your time. Okay. It's better for you to read a business book or sleep or golf or cycle or whatever else. As a small business owner, you want to do that for the shortest amount of time until you understand what's involved in it and that you really can oversee either a virtual assistant, and there are virtual assistants online on Odesk and Elance and whatever that know Xero and QuickBooks Online. You can tell them, look, we're going to use Xero or QuickBooks Online and A2X, and then we'll figure it out from there. But that gives you a baseline. Xero and QuickBooks Online will connect to your bank and credit cards and automatically pull data in. So it's that much easier. You just have to put things in the right buckets. Or you can hire an actual bookkeeper. But you want to make sure when you're talking to either a bookkeeper or a virtual assistant or an outsourced accounting firm that they understand your business. Okay. They know how to spell FBA. They understand that you're an inventory-based business. They understand that you do things on credit cards. They understand that you might be buying products internationally and sending international wires. They need to understand that you're going to have cost of goods sold. They have to care. They can't just be, well, I buy from Amazon occasionally and I'm a Prime member. That's not enough. You want to make sure you have somebody that cares about your business, geeks out about it, and digs into the nuances and actually talks to you, and not only puts the books together, but can actually communicate things back to you to say, hey, you're spending too much on marketing. You're doing these things wrong, and take over the work so that you can see the books and that you can trust them. And then you are only outsourcing the work. You are the business owner. You're ultimately responsible, both financially, legally. If it blows up in your face and you weren't paying attention, it doesn't matter. You might not be doing the work anymore, but you would never get rid of that responsibility. And that's one of the things I want to make sure everyone's clear on. Even for our clients, we take everything over. We give them read-only access to Xero. We do as much of the work as possible. It doesn't change their responsibility to pay their own bills, to understand what's going on, to pay their employees properly, to do 1099Ks. Even if you outsource the work, you're still responsible for what happens in all of that. So
I gotta tell you, I agree with that 100%. You need to know enough so you can monitor and make sure it's being done well. You don't need to know as much as the accountant, but you need to know enough that you can tell whether they know what they're doing or not. If they know FBA and FBA fees, if they understand that you shipped in 10,000 units and only 9,000 got logged in at FBA. You need someone who speaks our language. Also, I got to tell you, you need to know who is doing your work, okay? Whether you're hiring someone to do your plan of action, you're farming out some of your bookkeeping, whatever you're doing, it is vital. You need to know who is doing it for you and where it is being done. I can't tell you how many sellers that we deal with in just our area of helping draft plans of action where other people hired other consultants and they didn't realize that it was being written in the Philippines or was being farmed out to the outside of Manchester or wherever. You need to know who is doing your work, your bookkeeping, your plans of action, your marketing. You just need to know as a business person, and then you can make the decision. You might be okay with it being outsourced. You might not be okay, but you need to know enough to monitor who is doing it, and you need to know who is doing it. It's vital.
And you need to build a relationship with whoever you're trusting. You can't just go, oh, I signed up. There's so many online nameless, faceless cloud services out there. When you're talking about legal or accounting, you want to do video chats. You want to talk to them. You want to get to know them. They're part of your business. We make that a key point of our team, and all of our people are all here in Colorado working from home. We get everyone together to do crazy stuff occasionally, but in general, we just don't commute. But no, those are all excellent points. So let's look for questions to pop up. What other questions do you have for me, CJ?
Okay, let me take a look first. One of our viewers, I'm going to use the first names. Janice says 100% she agrees that you need to know how to do every job before you can delegate. Okay, so you can monitor. It's absolutely vital. Sales tax issues. We have a question from Kevin about how the collections are being done for Washington State.
So basically, if you're on Amazon, what'll happen, even if you're already collecting in Washington State and you have your ID number there, what's going to happen is Amazon's going to collect that money and not put it in your settlement statement and just give it right to the state. So Amazon's just going to cut you out. So the money's not sitting in your bank account for a month or a quarter or a year. The money goes from Amazon directly to the state. If you're not registered, Amazon's going to start collecting that sales tax. Not tell you anything about it, not give it to you, and off you go to the races. Doesn't change your responsibility to file a return if you're not registered there. But you want to be careful. You don't want to just register. You want to make sure you talk to a CPA or a SALT, sales and local tax expert, because by just registering and collecting going forward, you can get on the radar and then they might audit you. So you just want to be careful about the timing. But that only applies to Amazon sales. If you're selling on Shopify or eBay or Walmart, you're still responsible for collecting that sales tax, escrowing it and holding it in your bank account as a liability on your balance sheet, and sending it into the state on whatever time frame they say, and the B&O tax, the business and occupational tax.
I got to the salt. This new thing with the salt is going to kill. It's going to kill people, I believe, in New York, on the East Coast, in California, anywhere where you're already getting slaughtered with the salt tax, with real estate. You're going to get destroyed. Okay, we've got some links on the screen.
Yep.
I'm going to put Scott's write-up. I know it's going to block the screen a little bit. Okay, catchingclouds.net. We've gone a bit longer than usual, but please just bear with me a few more minutes, okay? Now, for Amazon sellers who want to learn how to be better Amazon sellers, there are certain events that are coming up. Prosper was mentioned a couple of times. Prosper in Vegas in March is probably the top domestic event for Amazon sellers, for advanced Amazon sellers. Scott and I have both been to and spoken at a lot of events. And Prosper, you sit down in the different courses, and I always learn something. Great speakers, and it's very inspirational. Also in Las Vegas, right around the same time, the incredible Seth at Just One Dime is got to be one of the most inspirational people that are out there in our space tribe. And he is incredible. Just One Dime, also in Vegas, also in March. In April, in Hong Kong, Global Sources is a fantastic event. It coincides with the Canton Fair, and it's in the same building as a sourcing place with a huge convention center right in Hong Kong. And if you haven't been to Asia, I tell you, you got to go check it out. What you're going to learn about how the Chinese are doing business is going to do nothing but up your game. And you also hear different speakers in Hong Kong. So they're coming from all over the globe to teach sellers how to do better. Also, if you are expanding into Australia, if you are going to this English-speaking market, an enormous country, an enormous population, Retail Global in May in Gold Coast, it's near the Brisbane airport, is going to be fantastic. I mean, the top entrepreneurs in Australia are going to be there. Scott, are there any events that you want to?
Those are really the main ones. There are much bigger shows out there like shop.org and IRCE, but they're just not great for smaller and startup sellers. You need to find the right groups, but there are a ton of great online courses, online training, forums to learn from, and then webinars like this.
All right, there's one more thing I want to talk about. Okay, I just put up on the screen. I think it's there. Okay, now Amazon has a lot of fantastic stuff. Okay, a lot of challenges for us, a lot of challenges for sellers. But one of the fantastic programs they have, in addition to hiring vets, in addition to going into marketplaces where people really can't get fresh vegetables, is they have Amazon Smile, the Amazon Smile program. Mm-hmm. If you're shopping on Amazon, and I know most of you are, it might be a love-hate relationship, you can go through Amazon Smile and pick a charity. This is the charity that we have picked, the Ty Lewis Campbell Foundation. This young boy died from brain cancer. He was the son of a fraternity brother of mine named Lou Campbell, and his wife, Cindy, and him took their tragedy and they just turned it into this fantastic foundation that raises money to try and find better treatments and to find a cure of pediatric cancers. As a consumer, it costs you nothing. As a seller, it costs you nothing. So please, as you're shopping the last few days before Christmas, if you take advantage of the price drop afterwards, if you're shopping, please go through Amazon Smile. Please choose the Ty Lewis Campbell Foundation, because all of the small amounts of money add up, and it is an absolutely fantastic organization. So, Scott, thank you very much. You provided a tremendous amount of content, of information. Thank you for listening. Keep killing it till the end of the year in your Q4. And please, if you're shopping, Amazon Smiles and the Ty Lewis Campbell Foundation. Thank you very much for joining us. We'll have another one on, I think, next Wednesday.
All right. Happy holidays, everybody.
Happy holidays.